In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Stories of Hope Worldwide, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope Worldwide. I'm Kerry Atherton and I'm your host, and today's guest is Todd Maguire. Toddy is about to become the author of a new book, which is named The True Story of an Undercover Cop with a Death Wish, Donnie. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you. How are you, Kerry?
Yeah, going great, thanks. This is going to be such an interesting story, and we've already talked about doing this in two parts. But in this interview, for everyone listening, you're going to hear how a fun-loving, average Aussie kid ended up in the depths of despair and is learning how to walk out of the wreckage of the past and live and find life again in a whole new way. So, Todd, thanks for being brave to come on and share. It's a story unlike anything that I've ever heard. We've only met up a few times and you've told me a few stories, but going through your book that's about to be published, there's just so many stories to be told. So we're going to try and pick out the gold, the relevant. And you said in your book too that your story needed a voice and you needed to find some kind of meaning to all the madness. You also opened up saying that in your book you dedicated it to your family who have both weathered the storms that came with Donnie's chaos and the quiet wreckage that followed. I'd love you to start at the beginning because I know that you grew up in a normal household. You described it really as an idyllic childhood, great parents, doing all the things that Aussie kids love to do, loved your footy as a teenager, loved getting out there, drinking, beer, girls, fighting more footy. And then at a particular point in your life, the year 2000, just right the day after the world turned, that day was a pivotal turning point for you. So we're going to talk about everything in your life up to that point today.
Yeah.
And then in episode 2, we'll talk about how Donnie came to be and the aftermath and destruction and how you've learnt to start the journey of rebuilding your life, leaving Donnie in the past and walking into a new destiny with a life redefined. So where'd you grow up, Todd?
Well, I was a Brisbane kid on the north side, as you said there before. Unlike a lot of people that find themselves, with problems later down in life, that they really were born into a very hard life. They had a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of problems with parents, uncles, sisters, brothers, whatever. Mine was almost perfect. I really had a loving family. I got provided all the opportunities that any kid could ask for. We were certainly not a rich family. We were sort of a good working, middle-class working family, and Dad always had 2 jobs. Mum always, she did a tough job doing 3 kids, bringing them up. But then, when we all went to bed, she went and stocked shelves at Coles at night. So, they did what they had to do to get 3 kids through all the private school education and sporting and everything that cost back then. So, I'm certainly grateful for that.
Yeah. What are your best memories as a kid?
Just having fun in the background, in the backyard with my brother and the sister, always playing footy, playing cricket, jumping on push bikes and terrorising the neighbourhood from sunup to sundown with the trusty old mongoose. Loved it.
There were good old days in Australia, weren't they?
Well, like, yeah.
Something that kids these days really, they don't know anything about, do they? Like the kind of life was back then.
Yeah, I was gone by about 7 a.m. I reckon I would have ridden 20, 30, 40 kilometres per day. I was like miles away from home.
Wow. And we were always safe, weren't we? Well, most of
Yeah, supposedly.
And so when you left school, you got into the hospitality industry.
Yeah, well, there was a few things after school. I didn't get the school that I wanted, and so that threw a bit of a spanner in the works. So I sort of mucked around with a few little things for a while, but didn't really, push my barrow. But ended up, just getting a part-time job in a nightclub, which ended up being full-time, and then that was it. I wanted to pursue that. I loved the entertainment industry. I loved the vibe of it. Loved the energy. Yeah, I was really really loving it. I went and did some course in business management for hospitality, and I thought to myself, yep, I'm either going to be a hotel manager or a publican. That'll do me at the end of the year, end of my life, or whatever, and that'll be me. So I sort of followed a few things and worked in some good old nightclubs in Brisbane, Mary Street, and so forth. It was a crazy place back then in the early '90s. On Thursday night, they used to have dollar drink. Oh my God, it was out of control. It was like dollar beer, dollar spirit, and it was just a free for all. It was out of control. It was so much fun.
I would have been there if I could have. I had, $1 million drinks, but I'd stopped drinking by then. Did you have a few brushes with the cops then?
Never did.
Oh, you didn't? No.
No, nothing major.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Mm,
Because
yeah,
I know
nothing
you said
major.
you like fighting. You got into a
Yeah,
lot of fights.
well, I did. Like I thought most young
Yeah.
boys did. Back in walking around the city in the late '80s, early '90s in Brisbane. It wasn't hard to find one, and there was no cops in sight. It really wasn't. There was no CCTV footage. There was nothing, and if there was a fight on, it would have been 20, 30, 40 people in it. It was just at it, filled the street.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It really was. It was a mad time to sort of go out, but I suppose as a young boy, I still had a bit of testosterone going through the brains and the loins, and I don't know, probably thought that was pretty cool, but I was pretty lucky never to get hurt or never to sort of be, you never always won every fight, but you never got hurt really. So
It sounds like you got hurt more on the footy field, hey?
I did, yeah, yeah.
Tell us
Uh,
about Pirate Patch.
yeah, yeah. So my old man, he was a really good footy player. He played for Brothers in Brisbane, and then went down to South Sydney, and then my brother, he used to make Queensland sides and went down to Parramatta for a bit. He was a bit of a legend in the Queensland Cup sort of scene, and I was sort of half keen in it, but I also loved the hospitality industry. So both of them just weren't working together. But I went down to North Sydney and I trialled with them, and the lure of King's Cross got me the night before of the trial, so that didn't work out for me. And I
Yeah.
think I worked out right then and there that a good time was going to be my priority. So I was playing under 19 brothers, and we're playing over at Purtell Park against West, and I was sort of on my line, and two blokes were coming towards me. So my forte when I was playing rugby league was, I'd rather tackle a grandstand than pass the ball. So I went in as hard as I could, but I probably met my match or met someone who's probably even better, and his head went straight into my eye socket, and then we think a fingernail might have lacerated my eyeball as well. So yeah, it was pretty full on. I ended up a couple of nights in hospital, and the doctor was saying, "Well, you probably will lose your eyesight, but in the meantime, we're going to put a patch on your eye, and we'll come back in 3 months, and we'll see how it is. And you got to do all of these things right, and if you don't do them, you more than likely will not have your eyesight." So I sort of did that for a bit, and as a 19-year-old, it wasn't really the best look, to be honest with you, a white eye patch on me. But then it came off 3 months later, and what I had was double vision around the periphery of it. So if I look sideways, I look upwards, downwards, I could see in double basically.
Oh, really? Were you
Mm.
concerned as a 19-year-old?
No, you don't think that your injuries early in life are going to come back and bite you on the arse. You don't think about it when you're young.
Especially as a young guy.
Yeah, yeah. So I sort of didn't play for the next year or two. I went up north, got a job as a cocktail barman on Dark Island, and thought I was Tom Cruise for a while. It was
You
just,
do the dance?
yeah, I did everything, tried everything, but I'd even practice, flipping the bottles at home and on the grass, and try to do everything. Just after that cocktail movie, I was obsessed with that.
Yeah.
So I did my best, had a great time. There's a bit of a story in the book that told me how I left the island, but I ended up moving up to Port Douglas after that, to the Sheridan, and then started going back to rooms and had a great time up there. And then got booked into playing footy again for the Moxman Sharks and the Cairns comp, and ended up having a great time up there. It was so much fun.
And so you said before that hospitality wasn't going to really work if you wanted a footy career. So is that when you decided to go into the cops?
Yeah, basically, like,
Did you ever
after a
think
year,
you'd be a police officer when you were a kid?
never, not
Okay.
once,
Yeah.
not once. I had a couple of mates from school who'd joined the cops, and I was hearing their stories, and I always think it was pretty cool. They weren't always the most proper stories to hear. They were pretty reckless, but I thought, yeah, he's got it there. Those blokes have got a good job. It sounds fun. Never meant that I was going to follow that. But I ended up getting a management position at the height at Sanctuary Cove, about when I was about 23, and like the money was so bad, and I was working probably 80 hours a week.
Wow.
And at that time, I ended up playing in the Gold Coast Group A for Naranga Roosters, and I actually started. I thought it was better. I could work out which ball to catch by then, because I was always seeing two, and I always worked out it was the bottom one. So most times I could actually catch the ball, so I was happy with that.
Must have been good if they kept you on and you were getting up to this level, even with double vision.
Well,
Were you one of these guys that could just kind of fluke anything and just like make it happen?
no, I wouldn't say that, but I know probably through all my young years, I did every sport known to man and did it all day, every day. And I don't know, I suppose, and a bit of genetics coming through with my parents, and
A gifted
got to be happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was never a world beater, but could hold my own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold my own. Like, I wasn't the best in the team, wasn't the worst in the team. But it was pretty lucky that I even look back now, because I'm still coaching.
Yeah, that's
In,
great.
in 1995, I was getting paid 300 to win, 100 loss. I sort of tell the young fellas now, and when you sort of associate that with my rent back then was probably $60 a week, so that was pretty good. I was happy with that.
Great money, hey.
Yeah, yeah. So it wasn't until I sort of started doing that, and I was sort of making A grade, and then couldn't play because I was working one weekend, and then you get dropped, and then you're back in it again, and then you're dropped again because of work, and sort of got to the stage where I went, oh, the money was shit, work was just way too long, and I just didn't see any future in it by then. And by this time, I'd really got my hunger for rugby league again. I really had no interest in making the big time, but I just wanted to give it my best and play good footy and train hard and be a regular A grader. So I was at the pub with a mate of mine, Mozza, at the Parkwood Tavern down the Gold Coast, and he was in the cops, and he was telling me all about police footy and he was basically just talking police footy. And I already knew all the other stories from my old mates, and that just pricked my ears. I went, hang on, we used to play footy in there. Oh yeah, we play this, that, and that. I went, no way, I didn't know about this. And he's going, mate, and well, this is my pay this week. This is my pay, and I'm going, that's almost double what I'm getting now. It's like, over about, I think it was the fifth burner, I finally agreed and said, okay, I'll apply once. If I don't get in, I'm not going to apply again. I'll give it a shot. Will that shut you up? Because he just was on me.
Yeah.
So put the application in and bloody got in. Can you believe that?
Wow. Did you think you'd get in?
No, I didn't. I honestly didn't.
Was that because of the double vision or something else?
Yeah, well, I had no crime. No, I had no criminal charges or no dramas, but I don't know. I just didn't think I'd fit who they were looking for. Yeah, my view of them back then was they were the kids that got picked on at school. So I figured I wasn't one of them. But as I sort of learnt when I got in, it was very much a camaraderie, footy type team mentality, which I actually really enjoyed.
And a lot of people think that, because I've talked to a lot of police officers and worked with some of them as when they've come out the other side, and they go in, don't they, thinking it might be like Blue Heelers and the cop shop, and nothing prepares you, does it, for what
No, it
after
doesn't.
the era, as you mention in your book?
Yeah, you don't. You know that you're going to go to situations, and it's everyone sees gory stuff. Everyone sees death and injuries and stuff. And I suppose the hardest part that I found was dealing with the family afterwards. The grief of telling them and then being with them and updating them with what had happened and what's happening now. And that where you saw the pain, you saw the anguish, you saw their lives were never going to be the same. I think that's what really knocks coppers around, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Mm.
Does that stuff stay with you?
Not me, because I
Okay.
think there's been too much other stuff
Yeah.
over the top of it. But I actually still do remember giving my first death message my first year, and it was down the Gold Coast. And I still remember, knocking on the door. Father came to the front door, and you could see his face. He just knew straight away something had happened. And I said, "Oh, is your wife here?" He goes, "Oh, she was in the bedroom." Just tell me, I'll tell her. I said, "Okay." Told him that unfortunately his son had passed away in a car accident. And then he said, "Thank you very much." He was sort of holding it fairly well. He went into the bedroom, and as we were walking back out of the car, you just heard the most awful howl in the world, which just sent shivers down your spine. Just the mother just screaming, breaking down, saying, "No, no, no."
Yeah.
They're the sort of ones that you go, "Oh, man, that just gives you a bit of a chill," yeah.
And I don't think PTSD was even talked about really in the police back then, was it?
No.
Just like, "Oh, yeah, well, it's just part of the job, mate, get on with it," and one layer goes on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, and
Yeah, exactly.
As you hear this story, what Kerry's discussing might be resonating strongly with you. Perhaps you've experienced something similar yourself and are looking for support. Kerry Atherton is an experienced counsellor and wellbeing coach and has private sessions available if you or someone you know needs some help. You don't have to deal with trauma, addiction, PTSD and abuse alone. If you'd like to talk about today's episode or your own experiences, book a session with Kerry at empowerlifesolutions.com.au or check the link in the show notes and embrace a future filled with hope. Now back to the episode.
after you joined the police, how long after that was it that you met your partner, Karen? Because your story with Karen really frames up everything else, doesn't it? And was really the reason that you became Donnie.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose for the first couple of years I was single. I was living in the barracks down at Kira, having a great time. As they say, you're living the best life, really. Right on the beach. Kira Hotel was my second home. There was a great bunch of blokes in the barracks. We'd play cricket in the front driveway, and it was so much fun. It was just thinking, I've really everything's sorting out. I've landed the cracking job. Didn't expect it. I'm down the Gold Coast, right on the beach, playing footy, everything what I wanted. It was really good, and I was pretty happy with myself. And then I met, I was 25, I think it was 24, 25. Yeah, I met this girl named Karen, and she was 31. She was had moved over from Christchurch, and she was friends with one of my mates from Christchurch, and he introduced me to her. And like to me, sort of back then in the 25 to 31, to me she was like a whole generation older than me. Like I felt
Yeah.
she was way out of my league. She was like a woman. I was still a child. She'd had so many more experiences than me. Like she'd been married, she'd had a kid, all these sort of things. But she was just mesmerised. She was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. She only a short girl, but dark hair. But every place we ever went into, heads turned, and it was amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know what. I mean, I saw the beauty in her, but it just made people stop what they were doing and just stare at her. I was like,
Yeah.
wow. So yeah, it took me a fair while to. I was probably still proud of the uniform back then, and I would just inadvertently rock up to her into her job and just say hello and just see how's everything going, and yeah, see if that works.
Yeah.
God, I've got to try everything. Bloody hell, this one's not going to be easy. Yeah.
Oh, surely the uniform would win her over.
Well, I kept at it. Yeah, it certainly didn't happen straight away, and I kept at it, kept at it. I tried, and
Did
eventually
she not want to get into a relationship? What was
I
it?
don't think she did. No, she
Yeah. Okay.
no, she was still separated from her husband, and yeah, she had still a few stuff that she had to deal with there.
And she had a little boy, didn't she, at the time?
Yeah, she had a little
At
boy,
the
yeah,
time
Clark,
before yeah.
and he at the time was about 3 or so.
Okay.
So my persistence worked out, and next thing you know, we're sort of seeing each other very, very casually. Nothing much. I was still living in the barracks. I was living few other places, and then would have been a good 6 months later, I would say. Yeah, they were kicking me out of the barracks, I think it was, from memory, and I was looking for somewhere to stay. She said, "I just put your year here until you find something," and that's usually how it works, doesn't it? I never left.
I've got a I never left situation as well. We're
Yeah.
together for 38 years now. Yeah, in one day, and that's it.
So once I moved in, things obviously got very serious. I sort of almost became like second dad type thing.
Did you feel ready to be a dad at that
No, I didn't even feel ready to live with someone. I'd never lived with a woman before in my life.
time?
I'd had girlfriends before, serious girlfriends, but never lived with them. Yeah, I was actually enjoying it. It was really good. But just with the Catholic background, I really had struggles with, well, the fact that she had been married when she was 18 and that lasted 3 months. And then she got married again when she was 25. So technically, she'd been married twice and she got a kid. And
Right.
I was just thinking, oh, my parents and my family are not going to like this. And I kept on, I don't know, almost like holding at arm's length to a certain extent. We're still all the way in it, but just not committing fully. If that makes any sense.
It does. I grew up in a Catholic background as well. I felt a lot of the hellfire and brimstone.
Mm.
When I was living with my hubby, after I'd officially moved in, he wanted to start reading the Bible, and I just couldn't get my head around the whole thing. "Oh, we're living together, but you wanna read the Bible?" And so then at night, I'm like, "Don't have that Bible on my bedside table. Get it right away from me." 'Cause I had fear, there was the indoctrine and the fear of and the judgment and doing the wrong thing, so I totally get what you're talking about there.
Yeah, it's only something that I remember now that
Mm.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever verbalized it, but I remember that's why I just wasn't, well, the fact that she was still technically married,
yeah.
it couldn't have gone any further, like, officially,
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
because she hadn't technically been divorced.
How did your parents receive her did you introduce her to them early in the piece?
Yeah, I did, yeah, and they were great. So, it wasn't anything that specifically happened or whatever, it was more in my mind, not
Mm,
anything that had come from a relative or a friend or whatever, but
yeah,
it was just something that was playing in my mind, thinking something that probably wasn't there.
yeah. The fear, false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just from what you grew up listening to and learning and believing in,
Yeah.
I just had that concept in my head that people are not gonna like this.
So you said that you kind of kept her at an arm's length as a bit of a form of protection or self-sabotage or fear of judgment?
Yeah, I think all of them.
Okay.
The fact that she was still technically married.
Yeah.
Secondly, I remember thinking to myself, and I know it's not that bad these days, but back in 1998, 99, I kept on thinking to myself, I don't want to be number 3 marriage. I don't want to be the number
Yeah.
3 husband. Yeah. Which to this day, it probably doesn't matter, but back then I felt it did. Yeah.
Yeah. So what caused you to let your guard down?
I think because I genuinely cared and loved for her. I really liked her. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed being with her. Yeah, I was pretty smitten. Yeah. I couldn't believe that I'd landed someone like that, to be honest with you.
Oh,
I didn't want it to disappear,
yeah.
but I just had those things in the back of my mind going, "Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, can't do this." And I only sort of think about that later, trying to understand what I was thinking at the time.
Mm.
Because at the time, you're sort of just doing what you got to do. And to me, even though I was 25, I still really hadn't experienced much life and still felt I was a bit of a kid, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that
Because as
makes
we know, blokes don't mature until we're in our 40s, eh?
well, yeah, I was gonna say that before, but I didn't wanna sound like I was having a go at the guys, but science says that a guy's brain doesn't fully mature till they're 28.
Yeah, I'd say 48, but there you go.
Yeah. And then some people are just big kids forever, aren't they?
Yeah,
I still feel like I'm about 25, but,
yeah,
odd.
exactly.
So Todd, as your relationship developed, how long after you were together did Karen fall pregnant? Because I know this is a really big part of the story too, isn't it?
Yeah. So it was probably a good year and a half or so, 18 months
Okay.
at least. We'd been living together for a good 12 months. And yeah, I'd gone away. Well, the first year I'd gone to England with the Australian police side, and we toured there for a month. And then the next year, it was in November of '99, and I'd made the Australian side, and we were going to play a international test against the USA Tomahawks in Philadelphia. So everything that I wanted was just, I mean, I joined the police. Next thing you know, I'm flying around the world and playing footy, and couldn't be happier. Could not be happier. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. Not to make a career out of footy, but have great experiences and play a fairly decent level too. And just before that had happened, we'd only just been to Bali, probably a month or two before that as well, on a holiday. And yeah, she told me she was pregnant. Yeah, that really threw me. It threw us both, to be honest with you. You know, first thing I said was, okay, I'm not going to go over to the US. But she convinced me that, it's only 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I said, okay. And yeah, so I went over, had a great time. I know I didn't feel right over there. Like, I wasn't comfortable. I just wasn't relaxed over there. I was trying to ring it all the time. I used to get faxes sent from her to the hotel, and no mobiles. I had to find a public phone, international, ring at the right time, make sure she's home.
Yeah.
And it was probably only every 4 days or 5 days, but there's certainly no good morning text.
No, that's right. Communication was so difficult back then,
Mm.
especially being in another country.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's understandable that you didn't wanna leave because it's such a bit of a vulnerable time, isn't it, when someone first falls pregnant?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
but I suppose in the same thing, I'm thinking, well, it's only 3 weeks. I've been wanting this sort of life forever. The footy, what an opportunity! Life surely won't be any different when I get home. I think that's what I was thinking, to be honest with you. I certainly didn't expect it to go the way it did. Mm,
You talked in the book about you both choosing that she terminates the pregnancy?
yeah.
Okay, you're about to come to that part, are you, in the story?
Yeah, we sort of went away afterwards, and yeah, spent 2 or 3 days together, and we really talked it through over and over. And I sort of got the feeling, again, you think about it later, that if I said yes, she probably would have said yes, but I said, well, I'm not ready for that.
Okay.
And I think she might have gone, well, nor am I, type thing.
Yeah.
Only she could probably explain that, but that was the feeling I got. Yeah. So
And you talked about in the book that you've grappled for a very long time to find some answers, and you've gone over that and wondered if that played a role in what happened next,
yeah, exactly.
and you felt regret and wondering if you did the right thing or the wrong thing at the time, and
Yeah, that's been one of the things that I have questioned, because for you're getting on 25 years now, since it's happened. Um, you sort of you go through a multitude of different scenarios and questions as to why things happen the way they do. And
yeah.
if I did a different decision, made a different decision, would the consequence of that change the course of someone's life?
So I know this is hard to talk about now, Todd, but what transpired after that leading up to 2000? Because in the book, you've got before 2000 and after 2000, and there's that definitive line in the sand. And our listeners will understand why shortly when you share about this. Then Donnie came to be after that. So, can you share with us what happened after the pregnancy was terminated and the weeks leading up, and what happened on the day after 2000 hit when everybody in the world thought that the whole world might end? 1999, and everyone was stocking up thinking, "Is this the end of the world?" And it
Like,
literally became the
like
end of the
COVID,
world
really.
as you knew it, didn't it,
Mm.
that day?
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose the next couple of weeks, we were still close, but you could sort of tell there was a bit of it was just uncomfortable silences, and she used to, she was just a bit more quieter, but I was certainly trying to, be with her, protect her, and try and make her feel as comfortable as possible. She always said that she was fine, and she was just a bit upset about it, and I said, yeah, well, so am I. Yeah, I don't know. But pretty busy time for me at work then because I'd already had my holiday. Christmas and New Year's on the Gold Coast was pretty full on.
Oh,
By that,
at least it is, isn't it? Crazy time.
especially leading up to New Year's Eve 1999.
Yeah,
That I
massive.
still I still say to this day, I've worked many, 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 many New Year's Eves. The
Yeah,
noise that were coming from the hotel rooms and the high rises at Surfers Paradise and Broadbeach, it was just deafening. I've never heard anything so crazy. Like it really was partying like it was 1999. It was just
yeah, yeah.
it was out of control.
And I remember where I was at that time too. I think everybody that had a New Year's Eve then could remember where they were.
Yeah, everyone was having a great time, but there was that thing in the back of the mind saying, "What's this Y2K millennial bug rubbish? What is it? Are we going to die in the morning anyway? Because everything was supposed to, stop working, and nothing we knew was ever going to be the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was working 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. on New Year's Eve, and before we were going to work, there was a group of us, like 3 or 4 blokes, 3 or 4 of girlfriends or slash wives. All the blokes were going to work as coppers, and all the girls were going out and partying. So we said, "Oh, let's have dinner at Surfers Paradise first, then we'll see the girls off, and then we'll go back home, get changed, and head off into the pickle factory." So we did that, and we certainly had the old Nokia 3110s or whatever. They were actually just used for phones back then.
Flip phone.
Yeah. Well, mine. I still remember mine was just an open one, and this is a fairly big point because I was sitting at dinner, and I remember just hearing. I thought I'd lock my phone, but because I remember you used to do, enter and then star or something to lock it, and I remember just hearing my buttons of my phone in my jeans sort of beep, 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 beep type thing. And I pulled it out just to go and clear it and lock it. And it had 666 there. And I
Oh,
just made this joke saying, "Hey, look at this, everyone. I just got a message from the devil. We are all going to die tonight." And I
wow.
just made a joke of it. I remember it so vividly. And I just made a joke. Everyone laughed and went, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, good on you. Yeah." So anyway, at work, Karen had messaged me and said that someone had given her a half ecstasy pill, and I wasn't real impressed with that, but
Oh, yeah,
can't
because
stop it doing it.
police officer. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why do you think she messaged you to tell you that?
Oh, because we definitely didn't keep any secrets.
Yeah, okay.
She was, one, telling me how good she was feeling, and two, I think she was also saying, keep an eye on me as well.
Right.
So So I did. I sort of kept on messaging her through the night. And she kept on saying how good she felt and just having a greatest night of her life. And we're dancing, we're having fun, we're doing this and that. Never had an incident. There was nothing that I knew about. To me, it sounded like she just had a great night. My night went so quick because we were just going from fight to fight and arresting people. And next thing you know, early knock off, 5:30, which I was pretty happy. And I raced up to wonderful Melba's where she was. And her and a few of her friends were waiting outside. So I just finished work. Said, "I'll drop you home." So I dropped the first 2 girls home, and then we kept going to back to our house at Mudgeeraba, sort of out in the sort of hinterland type thing. And she certainly wasn't drunk, but she was in a good mood, still in a good mood.
Yeah.
We had a kiss and cuddle. We were happy. We were fine. By this time, there was no arguments. She didn't say that there was anything that happened, or she wasn't saying, my life's shit, or nothing. Everything was just like any other day, like a normal day, just talking generally about stuff. By the time I got to sleep, it was probably 9 a.m. and I had to be back at work. I think it was 4 o'clock in the arvo. So by that time, I was feeling a little bit fatigued, and I said, "I think you need to have a sleep too. Come on, let's go."
Yeah.
So she was asleep, or she jumped into bed with us, and I think it was only about an hour and a half later, I remember knocking on the door, and it was Clark and her husband being dropped over, and it was like, "Oh, I didn't know he was coming over today." Okay, yeah, cool, no drama.
It's her son.
Yeah, yeah. So the dad was dropping him over, and at that stage he was down in the we had sort of like a granny flat downstairs, but that's where all the laundry was getting done. So she was down there. I went down there just to see if she was and going, "Oh, how come Clyde's here?" And she said, and she was crying, and she was saying, "I've been a bad mum. I was supposed to go and pick him up. I forgot. Blah blah blah." I said, "No, no dramas. Like, I don't think Dad will have an issue with it. He's a good fella. Like, and there was a really good relationship between all three of us. There was
Yeah.
no ill feelings. There was no anger. There was no hatred towards anyone. And I thought he was a great dad. And I said, he won't care. Like, no dramas. Don't beat yourself up over it. Everything's fine." And I sort of laid down with her on the bed downstairs, and I gave her a bit of a kiss on the head, and I said, You're just getting, like, you haven't been to sleep yet. You're really tired, you're fatigued, emotional, probably whatever you had, alcohol and ecstasy is probably wearing off now. I think you really need to get to sleep." She goes, "Yeah, good idea. I agree with that." So came upstairs. I remember we locked all the doors and we put a movie on for Clark, made sure that he was all safe, and he could watch TV for hours and not even move. So we knew that he'd be fine for an hour or so. Anyway, we went to sleep. Well, I went to sleep, I know that. I would have been asleep within about a millisecond. Anyway, I woke up and I still remember it was 1:35 PM exactly. I woke up to, yeah, Clark sort of going, "Mummy, where are you? Mummy, mummy, mummy," walking around the different rooms. And then he came in to my side of the bed and said, "Mummy, where are you? You know where Mummy is?" And I sort of rolled over and went to, I thought, "Oh, she might be under the blankets or something, I don't know." But no, it was empty. I went, "Oh, okay. Oh, she must have got up already." So I picked him up and I said, "Let's go and find Mummy." And I sort of made a bit of a thing. I said, "Let's see if she's in this room." "No, not in this room." "What about this room?" "No, not this room." And he was laughing, giggling, we were having a bit of fun, and I was still a bit groggy, but, I was still trying to wake my head up, "Where am I? What day is it? Blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
Um, anyway, I said, "Well, she's not upstairs, probably downstairs doing the laundry," because that's what you were doing earlier. So I thought, "Okay, yep, let's go downstairs." So you had to go outside and then down a set of steps and then open a sliding door to go into the granite flat downstairs. And as went downstairs and opened the door, and I just saw her there. She had used a electrical cord and she'd wrapped it through the rafters and around her neck, and she was hanging. It was almost like a train hit me. It was like
Mm.
the biggest hit I'd ever experienced in a footy game. It
Yeah.
knocked the wind out of me. It almost put me to my knees, like I didn't know what had hit me so hard. Um, I I remember just throwing Clark outside because I
Yeah.
didn't want him to see it, and then slamming the door. And you think, what a stupid thing to do, but who knows what he could have done, in the backyard or what was there or whatever. I was just I was I don't know how long I stood there, I'm not sure. Everything just went slow motion, everything went weird. I felt like the way I describe it, not only the hit is that like a samurai sword had slashed me right open.
Wow.
Just just complete, like, I know it was all, like, emotional, but it was so physical. It hit me so physically hard that I found it hard to walk, or I found all of these things. I remember screaming, like, "What have you done? No, Karen, Karen, what have you done? Why? Why?" All of those things. I remember picking her up and trying to take the weight off her neck and trying to get the electrical cord from around her, but it was underneath and it was twisted and it was really tight, and for the life of me, I tried for so long and I couldn't undo it with one hand doing that and then one hand trying to. I probably needed both hands and a bit more slack to really do it. But I could tell that, I knew she was cold, and I knew, you know, I sort of talk about it in the book, her tongue was out, blue, and, her face didn't look the same. And, you know, I'd already seen, a good handful of dead bodies in the police, and when you see a dead body and when you don't. But I wasn't gonna let that stop. I ran upstairs and came back down with a knife, and I cut the electrical cord, put it down, unravelled it, and then started CPR. And I remember the chest going up and down, and I just had that feeling. I went, "I think I've got it back. I think I've got it back." And
Oh,
then after a while, I realised it's just my air going in and my air coming back out. Because when you really felt the neck, like it wasn't right. It wasn't. You knew something bad had happened.
yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I just had this feeling then, and I reckon by that time it would have been. 5, 10, 15 minutes for all I know. Everything just went so, time is just not, I don't know. Could have been a minute, could have been an hour, I don't know. I was in a bit of a state, I know that. But then I just had this feeling, "Shit, where's Clark? What do I do? Where is he?" So I went outside to get him, and he was actually down a bit, in the back of the yard, but he was fine. So I just picked him up, held him in my arms. And I didn't want to go back in and let him see it. I
Yeah.
went upstairs and I had to ring the police station where I was supposed to start work in a couple of hours and tell them to get an ambulance here now. I remember ringing my mum and dad. Dad was down in the bowls club having a beer. Mum, I had to say it, 10, 15 times. She didn't believe it. She's, "What? What? What? What has she done? What? No, 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 it's not possible. It's not possible." And I still find that hard remembering how upset it made Mum. And we just waited. It was at the end of a cul-de-sac because I wasn't gonna let Clark go back downstairs. I knew she'd gone, and I remember hearing the siren. Again, it could have been 2 minutes away, but it felt like it was doing it for 2 hours. It just felt like it took forever and ever and ever. Um, and yeah, ambos turned up. I think I think by this time, the neighbour might have turned up, and I gave Clark to the neighbour, went back downstairs with the ambulance, and yeah, they sort of looked at me straight away and said, "Yeah, we can't help her." It, yeah, I know. So went through the process of police turning out, the undertaker, everything that I do at work. I knew exactly what was going to happen next, but I
Gosh.
really wanted to make sure that her dignity was there, and
Yeah.
I did all the right things by her. And then things sort of turned a little bit shit once she sort of got taken away. Went over to the next door neighbours and was sitting in the back thing. By that time, friends, family, coppers, off-duty coppers had turned up, lights and sirens everywhere. It was the whole street was full of. And then, everyone sort of parted and said, "Oh, the detective inspector's here." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I knew of him. I was still a fairly junior constable. I was only 2.5 years into the police.
Mm.
I knew who he was, and I never had a conversation with him. That was way too above my pay level. Anyway, so he sort of, "This is process. We've got to ask you these questions and everything." I said, "Oh, okay." Yeah. Through tears, through crying, I'm trying to explain again for the 5th time what had happened, what I saw, what's been happening. Kept on focusing on the knife. "What'd you
Right.
use the knife for, young fella?" "What's that for?" I said, "To cut her down." "Is that all you did it with? What else did you use it for?"
Treating you
"What?"
like a suspect.
"Yep, 100%. And
Wow.
then I saw uniform bloke with gloves on putting the knife in a plastic bag, and I'm going, "The fuck's going on here?" "Oh, it's just procedure. We just got to ask you this." And I'm going, "Hang on, hang on, hang on." Like, I was just, and still to this day, I find it really hard to, like, I sort of know that they have to ask those questions, but I really felt betrayed. I think that was probably the start where I went, "I don't feel like I'm part of this organisation anymore."
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Mm, because how could I be treated like that is what I was feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've probably asked those questions 100 times myself to people in the same position. So I understand, but it doesn't stop me from thinking that I felt it was unfair to me.
Absolutely. And
Mm,
I've spoken to people too that have found their partners passed away, and then they've been interrogated for hours by the police, and
mm,
it's you just can't imagine what pain and suffering they're going through with that chucked on top.
yeah,
It's just a whole new level, isn't it?
yeah. Um, Something
Yeah.
that happened probably 6 years later, and
Mhm.
again, the 666 and so forth, I feel that there's a meaning to it all. You know, when Clark was 10, I sort of kept in contact with him. I still to this day I do. And he'd had a lot of therapy, a lot of work. He was back with the dad, and dad had a new wife, and they were wonderful people and did everything they could to make Clark free from any dramas from it.
Yeah.
They did everything they could. And there was one of those days where they said, "Okay, do you think you could explain to Clark what happened that day?" So I did. And his question to me was, "Why did the big black dog pin you against the wall for that whole time you were inside with Mummy?" And I've
Oh,
gone, "What?" I said, "There's no black dog. I still remember when I saw you, no dog in sight. We didn't have a dog. Street didn't have a dog. I'd never seen a dog anywhere close. He maintained that he couldn't move because there was a dog, big black dog, had pinned him up against the wall. And I'm going, wow, that's freaky.
It is.
And one thing that I've, over the last 25 years trying to make sense of it all, I honestly believe that Karen's black dog was released by her, and I took it over for her. That's basically what's happened, and I think that's what happens when people do decide to do that. They free themselves of the black dog, but it gets transferred over to their loved one.
And the black dog that we're talking about is the reference to the depression.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because everything was very carefree for you up to that point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then that was the beginning of hell.
It certainly was, yeah. My life went downhill big time. Like if I think I said in the book, rock bottom was 3 floors up. I was that far down.
Yeah.
I was pretty bad. Again, you're not proud of it now, but I drank myself into oblivion. I did. I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't working. I ended up living with my sister in a garage with a shitty old bed, an old TV, and just my clothes. I remember sitting on the bed one night and the screws hadn't been put in properly, and it all sort of hit the floor. It was just like, and things get any worse. Like,
Yeah.
my life's gone. Like I really couldn't see any future then. But I'd seen what, suicide has done to people. Still to this day, I've never considered it. I've never wanted to, but I do know that I started living my life so recklessly that I didn't care what had happened to me. In fact, I could have half wanted it to happen, but didn't want to do it by my hand.
Yeah. And I interviewed a young guy last night who had had a very great upbringing, and his partner left him and hooked up with his best mate just about 6 weeks later, and he had a 6-month-old baby with this girl. And he said that he stopped caring that day. He said an inner vow, I can't trust anyone anymore.
Mm.
And he just fell headfirst into the worst kind of addiction that I've ever heard of. Turned to the bikie gang because he felt like that's the only place where honour and camaraderie mean anything, and I can't trust anybody else. At least I
Yep.
might have some brotherhood here. And as we will hear in episode 2, you've spent a lot of time in dark places and in gangs, and Donnie's got a lot of stories to tell us next time, hasn't he?
Yeah. Again, it was a couple of sliding door moments where, over the next 12 months, I just floated. I didn't do really much, but I ended up transferring to Indooroopilly, ended up in the plainclothes area, and worked with a fellow who was ex-undercover and was still living and breathing it like he was still doing it, and sounded pretty cool. Sounded pretty cool to me. And then ran into a mate who was doing it right then and there, and it was the old mate, Ozza, who took me into the cops all those years ago. I went over to, the pub where we're at and listening to there was a group of them, and I remember thinking to myself, they look like a couple of roadies from a Bon Jovi bloody concert. They looked pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
They certainly didn't look like cops. And just listen to the stories, just let them think in. And I walked away from it that night going, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. And no one could talk me out of it.
Well, you mentioned the way you were treated straight after the incident when Karen passed away, and you felt really hurt by the police. Was there something that rose up in you then, like a kind of a rebellion against them and the way policing was done? Or did the role of Donnie become just another job opportunity, or was it an escape or an addiction or all?
Yeah, I think it was purely an escape.
Okay.
I really wanted not to be Todd. Donnie gave me the opportunity to forget all of my problems because I didn't want to deal with them head on. I really didn't. I just wanted to forget about it all, which you find out later in life, not a good way to go.
Yeah.
I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't, and I kept on saying to people, like, how do I, g'day, my name's Todd, g'day, how you going? Oh, guess what happened to me? I don't know how to tell people that.
Todd, was that anything to do with the way men were perceived to have to be back then? And especially being a police officer, having to be the big tough guy that doesn't display your feelings? Or was it
Yeah,
that it's
I
just
think
that
so.
you couldn't put it into words?
I think a bit of both. Yeah, definitely. Back then, I couldn't say it without breaking up, but then I also never found the right time, and I didn't know how to say it. Since this has sort of come out over the last whatever, when I've told people that I'm writing a book, I've known people for 15, 20 years, whatever, and they go, "I didn't know this happened to you, Todd." I said, "Well, it's not something that I just tell people, It happened well before I knew you, and it's
Yeah,
not like I go, oh, guess what happened to me?
yeah.
It just, you just don't."
And so many
So,
people have got skeletons in the closet, and we just look at the outward and we have no idea what people have been through. People see us where we are today, but they never saw the journey that got us to where we are today.
yeah, exactly, yeah. By the time I left police in 2023, I would say the 5 years before that was when the PTSD really started rearing its head, and my behaviour really started changing at work. But all that did was, it was the start of the end to push me out, really. I don't think anyone really sort of went, "I've noticed you changed a lot, Todd. What's going on? Why are you so angry? Why are you this and that?" It was just, Todd's a dickhead now, and
Yeah.
he's always argumentative. He's always angry, and that was it.
We're going to hear in episode 2 about Donnie. What area was Donnie working in, to be specific, so everybody that's listening knows what to expect with the next episode?
Yeah, so by November of 2000, so 11 months later, I'd been accepted, and I did a month course for the covert operatives course, which was fun. There was a lot of scenario-based stuff, and then a lot of drinking, where the facilitator would would check to see how you would act if you're full. Are you a dickhead on the pigs? Do you
Right.
fall asleep? Are you whatever?
Yeah.
Are you mouthy? Do you get yourself in trouble? Do you tell people everything what you're doing? All that sort of shit. I've done a fair bit of homework or a bit of training and rehearsal over the last 12 months that the drinking that I was used to, it really didn't do much for me. I was always the last one up. I was always still sober, almost, and it was like, they're going, "Oh, everyone go to bed now." "No, I'm used to drinking for 2 days." Like, no. So I think I passed. Um,
Yeah, so that was proof that they would have a Donnie that would not blow his cover.
Yep, yep. And everyone changes when they drink. They wanted to see how people change when they drink,
Yeah.
whether it was for the good or the bad. I was pretty lucky that my body had a fairly high tolerance for it.
Well, on that note, we'll go over and out Todd, and we will meet Donnie next time.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. There's some cracking stories.
Thanks, Todd, for sharing all that today. I know that your story is really going to help a lot of people who are struggling alone and in the darkness and don't know how to verbalise what they're going through. And yours, even though it's been very heart-wrenching today, the final part of the story next week really does end with you walking into finding hope and reading.
Absolutely.
So thanks.
That's the message I'm trying to sort of send to people is everyone has mud training at times of their life. Don't take these options out. It always gets better.
Oh, that's great. And thanks, Todd. Look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you for listening to Stories of Hope with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leaving a rating and review on your podcast player. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find her next event. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode, and remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.